Hello all, welcome to my YouTube channel. So in today's video, we are going to discuss a feature called Azure SQL Failover Group. So this feature is also used for high availability and disaster recovery for databases. So in my previous video, we have already discussed a feature called Active Geo Replication. What that feature was at database level, and Azure SQL Failover Group is a server level feature, like SQL server level feature. So let's understand how it works basically and what it is. So as we know, it's used for high availability and disaster recovery. If you can see, as part of this particular architecture, this is the primary region where we have our SQL server and database, and this is a secondary region where we have our logical SQL database and the server. So in the case of any event, like for your application, you have configured the primary region, and suppose this primary region is facing some kind of outage. So in that case, what will happen? The automatic failover will automatically happen and your application will not face any downtime. So there are two options which you can configure. First is automatic failover. For that you have to configure some kind of policies, and another option we have manual failover. So let's understand in little detail, and then we will see in a demo how it works. So what is an Azure SQL Failover Group? So as I discussed, Azure SQL Failover Group is a high availability and disaster recovery solution that enable you to automatically failover your Azure SQL database or manage instance to another region in case of planned or unplanned outage. So there is one difference here. The active geo replication feature is not supported for Azure SQL managed instance, but Azure SQL Failover Group support Azure managed instance as well. So this feature ensures that your application experience minimal downtime and can continue operating smoothly. When creating a failover group between the primary and secondary server, use paired region, as failover group in paired region have better performance compared to the unpaired region. So what does it mean basically? In Microsoft documentation, you will see there are multiple paired region, like for Central India will be some paired region, for example East Asia or East US or West US, some kind of, like, for I'm just saying example, this is not a paired region, but you can check the list in official Microsoft documentation site. So there are some paired region where you will not see any performance issue if you are using paired region. You can also use unpaired region to configure the failover group, but it is recommended you use a paired region so you will not face any kind of performance issue. So let's see some features and benefit of Azure Failover Group. So let's see what is the feature. So automatic failover, for that you have to configure some kind of policy. Based on your policy configuration, the failover will happen. Second, we have a geo replication. So we are distributing or creating our database in two regions. So at a time, maybe one region can go down, but not the other region, because for example, you have a data center in India and another data center in US. So there is not like anything or any event can happen in the both region parallelly. So for that we are creating a geo replication for high availability and disaster recovery. Read only endpoints. So what does it mean? So suppose you have primary region and secondary region, and in primary region you want read and write operation for your database, and some part of your application you have only some kind of data which only read from the database. So to avoid the load on the primary server, what you can do, you can configure read write operation for primary database and read operation for secondary database. So in what will happen in that case, your application performance will be high and the load on the database will be reduced. So that also you can configure, like it's always depend on your requirement what and how you want to configure, but there is an option which we can use primary and secondary database both for our application. And zero data loss, because we are going we have two regions with our databases, so there are minimal chances you will see data loss in your application. Another let's see what all the benefits. So there's a high availability, as we already discussed, disaster recovery, global distribution, and cost effective. Because if your application will not face any kind of performance or any kind of downtime, then always you will always get a traffic on your site. It means your application will be up and running and you will earn from that, like whatever they like, it could be e-commerce or some kind of application. So these are the few benefits and features. There are some best practices as well for Azure SQL failover groups. Like time to time, you have to test your failover scenarios. You should not, like, it's not like that you configured once and you wait. Okay, once the region will be down, then it will automatically fail over. So you have to always test your scenario, failover group scenario. Let's see demo how it works. So let me go back to my Azure SQL Server, sorry, Azure portal. So here what we will do, we will create a SQL Server in one region, and then we will configure the failover group, and then we will choose a secondary region. So let's create a SQL Server first. So I am here giving a name of primary DB1, and this server name should be unique. And the reason I am choosing for my primary database, let's choose Central India, and authentication I'll use SQL authentication here. So give me name here. Okay, next go to networking, security. I'll keep everything is default. So it will take couple of minutes to configure, to create the SQL server. So let's wait. Okay, so SQL server deployment is completed. Let me go to resources and I'll go to databases. So here we don't have any databases. So let's create a database first. So let me okay, let me give database name. Here is app tv1. You can see the server, it is automatically taken primary DB because we have only one SQL server. And let me choose compute and storage options. So here I'll go standard, also we can go. Let me choose standard and I'll apply, and rest all the things I'll leave in default. Networking we will configure later. Security, so rest everything I'm keeping in default. Let's create it. So again it's going to take couple of minutes to create the SQL database. So let's wait till then. Okay, so SQL database deployment is completed. Let's go to resources. Now what I will do, I will insert some data on this particular database. So I'll connect to the server from my SQL Management Studio. And let's give username and password. Okay, so so we are getting error, an instance specific error occurred while stabilizing the connection. So okay, so I need to add my IP address of my local system to the SQL server. So let me go back to the SQL server and I'll go to networking. And here you can see the public access is disabled now. So I'll choose selected networks, and here I will add my client IP address and save it. So it's completed. Let me go back to my SQL Management Studio and let's try to connect. So now we have connected. So let's go to database and I'll insert some data on this. So let me copy paste. So here I'm gonna run this particular. So I'm basically creating a table called fruits and I'm inserting 3 rows with the fruit names apple, mango and orange. So you can see we got the details F1, F2 and F3. These are the rows which we have created. Now what next we have to do? Let me close this. Now again I'll go back to my SQL server. Now the SQL failover group is the feature at server level. So if I'll go down, okay, so this is, I'll go to my SQL server. So here if you come down, you can see here under data management we have a called failover group. If I'll go to my database, we will not see this option. So if I'll go to my SQL database, so here under data management, we don't have failover group because that is the feature at server level and this is the replica, that means active Azure replication. So this is the feature of database level. So let me go back to my database and I'll go to data management and failover groups. Let me create a failover group here and I'll give here name secondary, sorry, name here I have to give failover group db, some name I'm just putting here random name, and here I need to give my server name. So here the primary db. So you can see here you cannot choose same server as partner, you cannot choose the server from the same region. So next thing what we have to do, we have to create a SQL server in another region. So let me go back to my SQL server. So this primary DB one we have in central India. Let's create the another SQL server which we will create in any another region. So let me put name here SECONDRY secondary DB1 and region I will choose, for example, East Asia. And authentication also we have to provide. So I'll provide my username and password here. Rest all the fields I am leaving default. So let me go and review and create. So again it's gonna take couple of minutes. So let's wait till then. Okay, so deployment is completed. Let me go to the resources and again what I will do, I'll go back to my primary database server and go to data management and failover groups. Let me create the failover group again. So failover group. Okay. So now here we will choose a secondary DB server because from primary region where you want to fail over this particular server. So I'll choose my secondary DB one and here we will choose the database. So we only have one database. If you have multiple database, you have to select from here and I'll choose select and create. So again it will take some time to create the failover group. Okay, so deployment is completed for failover group. Let's go to resources. So this is the failover group which we have created. Now let me go back to my SQL server and we'll try to connect the secondary DB server as well. So if if I'll go to SQL database, you can see, and secondly also we got the appdb1. So let me go back. So this is the server name, secondly db1. So let's copy it and connect from management studio. Okay, so again we have to add our client IP address because public network access is disabled. So I'll go back to my database and networking, and I'll choose selected network and I'll add my client IP address. Okay, so it's completed. Let me go back to SQL Server and connect again. So let's run the query to see if we are getting the data which we have inserted in a primary DB or not. So select star from. So we are getting the data, 3 rows which we have inserted, F1, F2 and F3. Now we will do a failover, manual failover we will do. Then let's see what happened. So okay, let me go back to my primary DB server and I'll go to failover group. And this is the failover group which we have created. So here I'm gonna do failover and forced failover. So you can see here primary DB we have a policy read and write failover, and in secondary there is no policy. So what happened when you do a failover, your secondary DB will be a primary and primary DB will be a secondary DB. So let's see this. So let me do a failover. And you can see the endpoint here, read write listener endpoint and read only listener endpoint. So as of now we have a primary DB is a read write listener and the secondary DB is a read only listener. So as we discussed, if you want to use a secondary DB for a read operation only, in that case you can utilize these listener endpoint as well. So now you can see the failover is completed. So you can see the secondary DB is now become a primary DB, and you can do a read and write operation on this, and the primary DB will become a secondary DB. So let me go back to my management studio. So if I'll execute this query again, let me see the server name. So the secondary DB1 and this is the primary DB1. Okay, it's fine. So now what we will do, so the primary DB become a secondary DB and secondary DB become a primary DB. So now we'll try to insert some row and we will see if we are able to insert a data on primary DB, because our primary DB is become now a secondary DB. So I'll go back to and copy this particular row, and let me here what we will do, let's close this. I'll change the value here F3 to F4 and orange to orange 1, and let's execute. So one row is affected, and now we will run same query in secondary DB. Okay, SQL Management Studios looks like it got hanged. So let's wait a couple of minutes. Okay, so it's opened now. let me copy and let me put here F5 and orange 2. So here we have inserted both the rows in primary and secondary DB. Now if I'll go back to my SQL server, and here if I'll choose read only listener endpoints, so let me copy it. Now here we have only read only listener endpoint, so we cannot insert any data. So if I'll go back to my SQL server and let me connect to this endpoint. If I'll go to database, AppDB and new query. Now again what I will do, okay, let me copy. Now here what I will do, I will change the row name F6 to here orange 3. This is our read only listener endpoint, so we should not able to insert this row on this particular endpoint. If I'll execute it, you can see fail to update database F1 because the database is read only. So if you want to use both, utilize the both the region, one for primary for read and write operation and secondary for read only, in that case in your connection string you can utilize these endpoint. So that's all for today. I think it's clear how failover group work. If I go back here, so as we discussed, the primary DB become a secondary and secondary become a primary when you do a failover. So whatever the data or operation will happen on your application, everything like all the data will be stored in secondary DB and it will replicate to the primary as well. So because the same thing which we have seen here, if we are inserting any data on these primary and DB, we are able to insert, and we are also, if I'll quickly fetch the data on secondary database. So here select star from fruits. So you can see F1, F2, F3, F4 and F5, or in this particular app endpoint we have inserted so in this read only listener endpoint we are not able to insert the data, so we have tried with F6, so we will not see because we have mentioned F6 and orange 3. So these data is not inserted because this endpoint is a read only. If we will use read and write endpoint, then we can easily insert the data and it will replicate to the both the endpoints, primary and secondary. So that's all for today. See you in next video. Thank you so much.